Next year would be 45 to 55, so it's really the Eisenhower era. And I always say like DC Comics really either reflected or led the trend in society, right? Like the books that we publish, the stories, the characters that were embedded are often, they don't come out of nowhere, they come out of the zeitgeist of the time. They're very much spawned out of the trends and what people are into. And in the 50s, it was like post-World War II. Does anyone know about history? Do you know who Eisenhower is? Anyone? Are you sure? I'm gonna quiz you. All right, so, who's on the dime? Right. It's Eisenhower, isn't it? Okay. Anyway, so in that era, right, what was happening in that time period? World War II was over. A lot of the GIs were coming back to America, transitioning from being they're citizens, then became soldiers. Now they're coming back into citizens. It was all around building sort of the nuclear family, prosperity, rebuilding society, and the comics really reflected it. That was when Superman's family sort of expanded to Superboy, Supergirl, Crypto, a lot of these other characters, and then when you get to the 60s, it's sort of the counterculture, and that's when I think it was kind of sort of the height of the Silver Age, and you have a lot of the crazier stories, right? Multicolored kryptonite and wackier, sillier stories. And at that time, Batman 66, the Adam West TV show, was like a super top-rated show, and audiences really leaned into sort of the silliness of superheroes. And a lot of people, that was kind of a burden for our business for many, many decades. That, like every time you talk to people about superheroes or comics, it was like pow, bam, zip, whatever, because that show was so popular and all-encompassing, and how it kind of took over social. It didn't exist back then. But anyway, so then when you get to the 70s, that's when things kind of took, superheroes were kind of losing their attraction, like the silliness of it all. And there was a market twist, not just in comics, but also film, right? There was a lot of, when Taxi Driver was coming out, there was a lot of filmmakers that wanted to buck the trend and change culture through the stories they were telling, and you saw the same thing in comics. So that's when you had like Danny O'Neill and Neil Adams, and they took Batman, who was like more or less sort of a silly character at this point, and brought him back to this sort of grim and gritty Avenger of the Night. And in the 70s, you also had the rise of modern inner city crime, right? Bernard Getz. I don't see a lot of blank looks, but anyway, it was bad, right? And so the idea of a vigilante being out there fighting on our behalf was something that was embraced by the readers. And then when you get to the 80s, to me, that was sort of the golden era of DC, at least for me as a fan. Did anyone read comics in the 80s? Anyone here alive in the 80s? All right, yeah. I'm just trying to, I don't want to bore you guys, so, and I haven't drawn anything. So let's draw and talk. Let me try to do this. So the 80s, that was like the heyday of my comic book reading career. And I was really a Marvel fan growing up. And actually, take that back. When I was a little kid, all right, someone's going to take that pull quote out, and that's going to be a headline. So, all you reporters, pull back a second, all right? Huge DC fan when I was like 8, 10, 11, because the stories really spoke to me. And then when I became a teenager, the Marvel stuff seemed more sophisticated and grounded, right? Because it was all like around radiation and cosmic rays and stuff like that. In the 60s, that was a big thing. So it seemed believable that if you were exposed to radiation, you could stretch your body like 100 meters or whatever. And but then in the 80s, something happened, and DC, I don't know exactly why they did it, but a lot of creators just started telling different kinds of stories geared towards adults. They were no longer writing for exclusively towards young kids, and then you had The Dark Knight Returns, you had The Watchmen, you even had the Shadow series, which I really loved, by Howard Chaykin. So to me, it was like a renaissance of comics and really kind of elevated the craft. And so, Arkham Asylum, The Killing Joke, it was a fantastic sort of murderer's row of DC content. So I think that will be, so it's 45, 55, 65, 75, 85. So in 5 years, that's going to be a kick-ass. And then you get the 80s, and I've got my members only jacket, and we pull that out. It's going to be a lovely time. So if you guys want to participate, think about every decade, come as your favorite characters from that era. We're going to do this every year. And then 2035, to me, the challenge, I think, for the team, I've already brought this up, is like, we work like 2-3 years in advance, but this is 10 years from now. I want to question people, what is the industry going to be like in 10 years? Will we all be here celebrating at comics and movies and media in 10 years? And then there's a lot of sort of, I don't know if they're icebergs, but there are challenges ahead of us, right? Whether it's AI, crowdsourced content, expiration of copyrights or trademarks on certain characters. So there's a lot of things that will happen in this next 10 years, which I think will be transformative for our company. So it's not just this fancy booth thing, but it's also sort of a challenge to the team. Look, we're at the end of 100 years. We're lucky to be here at this company leading the charge. What is the next 100 years going to look like, and how are we going to set the table for its success so that we are around in 100 years having this panel, with an AI-generated version of me drawing for you guys. Most of you be bots at that point, so it probably won't be as good, but might have a lot more people. Anyway, so that's what's happening with the booth. So check that out, and gosh, I think I finished most of this, right? I think I just have to do the T-spheres.